This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 439, part 2, entitled Masculist scientists don't just answer back, they crush. Continuing straight on. These monoconscious feminists will be taught by such cyanate, numerate, masculist scientists that, quote, you feminists need to learn that you no longer have a monopoly of gender politics. From now on, you will have to share the gender political stage with the masculists. Since the masculists are men, we masculists will quickly dominate that gender political stage, the way men dominate everything, due to men's genetic superiority, with our 10% larger brains, our 4 IQ points higher average IQ than women's, our 10 times greater testosterone levels in our blood, making us much more aggressive, ambitious, dogged, persistent. So it's not surprising that men build everything, invent everything, create everything. You women have always been parasites of men. You couldn't hunt, you couldn't plough, you couldn't fight. You women have always been useless to the tribe, except for your two traditional monopolies of vagina and womb. We men are forced to be nice to you, since we want to penis you. To men, the only really attractive feature that women have is their vaginas. But now that 40% of women are obese and 30% fat, that makes 2/3 of women, in the judgment of slim, quality males, unfuckable. So it's not surprising that millions of men are now wiping their hands of women, choosing to live the MGTOW lifestyle, and in many cases not even sexing women, living the lifestyle of the MGTOW monk. Before the COVID problem is solved, I will approach the media via an emailing campaign, attaching a PowerPoint slideshow which I prepared for the first Masculist interview I gave some weeks ago, which summarised quite succinctly the main ideas of the Masculists. I'll make a list of journalists, their names and email addresses, and email them as an attachment that Masculist PowerPoint file, with the email subject line, quote, what do the Masculists want? Question mark. And email it off to several hundred journalists, hoping that a few of them will bite and then write or make radio TV programs on what the Masculists want, thus presenting Masculist ideas to the masses, to the millions, so that millions of men can liberate themselves from man's slavery and see the gender laws men feared as masculism penetrates the culture and has as important an impact on society as did feminism in the 70s and 80s. If I can do this, then so can other masculists and more politically minded MGTOWs. If you, as a reader of this flyer, would like to read this PowerPoint file, then its link is the following. And now ad libbing, I give the link. It's rather complicated, too long to read out. No, okay, I'll do it. So https://profhugodegaris, one word, .files.wordpress.com/2021/03/masculism101.pptx. You can download it, make a list of journalists in your country or region, and email it out as an attachment to them, hoping that they will respond positively and help spread men's lib ideas, masculist ideas, MGTOW ideas, etc. Doing this type of thing now, I anticipate, will be a lot more difficult than several decades ago, because women, feminists, that is monoconscious feminists, have largely taken over journalism. In the country I live in, when I watch the local news, most of the reporters are female, and these female feminist journalists have been brainwashed all their youngish lives that gender oppression is a one-way street, as I said at the beginning of this flyer, so will be biased against any expression of masculist ideas, thus showing how bigoted they are. As a classic example of this kind of sexist hypocrisy, that is, expressing the attitude that it's okay for women, for feminists, to lash out at men for the ways that men oppress women, but it's not okay for men, for masculists, to lash out at the ways that women oppress men, even though in masculist eyes, women oppress men far worse than vice versa, given women's decades-lasting man-slavery of men, etc. Close brackets. Take the case of the CEO of YouTube, who is a self-avowed feminist, who promotes feminist channels and, in capital letters, deletes Masculist and MGTOW channels. It's not surprising, therefore, that the Masculists and MGTOWs, whose channels have been deleted, have a hatred for this feminazi CEO, seeing her for what she is, a two-faced, sexist hypocrite, a misandrist, male-dumping, feminazi bitch, and hence utterly hated. But she is merely one of many such monoconscious feminists who masculists and MGTOWs label as bigots, as feminazis who behave in such ways. To break this thick layer of feminazi ice against masculists and MGTOW claims will take a lot of energy on the masculist's part. In my case, I plan to use a combination of severe male verbal aggression to put fear into the hearts of these women who learned eons ago to be afraid of men, who are so much stronger than women, in brackets, for example, 3 times stronger across the chest than women. So that today's women are still sexual cowards towards men, so that these women expect men to take the sexual initiatives. This fear that women have of men can be very useful to verbally aggressive masculists when haranguing monoconscious feminists, browbeating them with masculist science, telling these women that they no longer have a monopoly of gender politics, bruising the egos of these women so that they will certainly remember the bitter confrontation they had with the masculists. And the more it happens, the stronger the lesson they will learn, that this is the decade of men's lib, that women oppress men far worse than vice versa, that a young woman who does not bother to fit up will be spat at by her young male masculisted classmates, ignored socially and sexually, and treated as vile, as a manslaving parasitic vermin, forced to rot on the shelf as a hated fluffy. If some monoconscious feminist starts trying to harangue the masculist haranguing her, then the masculist, who is well informed of masculist ideas, can harangue her right back with much stronger arguments, since the masculist knows what the feminist knows, since he is bi-conscious, whereas the feminist is monoconscious. The masculist can hurl masculist ideas at her so that some of them stick. The audience listening to this will be very aware that something has changed in society, that there's now a masculist movement, a masculist mentality, a masculist ideology that women need to pay close attention to. For example, a fluffy can afford to ignore the message of the feminists that it's important for women to be careerists so that they can define their own lives. But a fluffy cannot afford to ignore the message of the masculists, since a fluffy can only be a fluffy if she can get her financial claws into some gullible, stupid, ignorant, man-slavable man. Since we men have the financial power, we are in a position to force women to grow up, to fip up, or we force fluffies to rot on the shelf, poor, spat at, and manless. Not a pleasant prospect for fluffies. We men, we masculists, have the power to wipe out fluffies and fluffy feminists by punishing them severely, by totally ignoring them. Masculists push young women to vote with men for the men fairing of the gender laws, so that young men are prepared to be fathers again. Masculists tell these young women that it is the hated fluffy feminists who have taken over the divorce courts that have made the quality men, in brackets, with whom they particularly want to mate, to obtain the quality DNA from quality men for their kids, close brackets, refuse to give them their sperm, since they reject marriage and paternity due to the toxicity of the divorce courts, taken over by the monoconscious feminazi bigots, that's MFBs. The young women in the audiences, when masculists are haranguing the monoconscious feminazis, will listen carefully to what the masculists are saying to young fluffies, since increasingly these young fluffies are noticing with boyfriend after boyfriend that these young men, especially the quality young men, refuse to give them their sperm. This is driving young women crazy, since they are finding more and more that this is not only happening to them, but to their friends and acquaintances as well. Young women are really starting to get the message that they are not going to have babies due to the paternity strike of the quality men, who due to their superior intelligence are the first to go masculist/MGTOW. So, it's quite possible that the monoconscious feminist who is being harangued by the verbally angry masculists in the audience will remain closed-minded, since to her, feminism is largely a religion, a belief system that does not care much about facts, about science, especially when they conflict with feminist dogma. But the young fluffies in the audience will be listening because they really want babies, but can't get the quality men they want to mate with to impregnate them. Instead, all they get is pumped and dumped, time after time, and this is driving them crazy. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Man's Slaves to Women, an e-textbook of 430 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.